Accessing library computer data.
Out there are no saints. Just people.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. We're continuing our run through of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Right now we're up to the episode called In the Pale Moonlight. The 19th episode of the 6th season aired on April 15th, 1998. Teleplay goes to Michael Taylor. Story credit goes to our old friend Peter Allen Fields, who recently passed away a couple months ago. Directed by Victor Lobel. In this episode, with mounting losses in the Federation-Dominion War and the specter of defeat, Captain Sisko enlists Garrick's help to persuade the Romulans to join the Federation-Klingon alliance to win the war. Sisko unwittingly learns that to save the Federation, he may have to sell his soul and the values that Starfleet stands for. We're joined by Clay, who is dancing with the devil in the pale moonlight. How are you?
Never rub another man's rhubarb, Wes.
No.
Gene Roddenberry is rolling in his grave after this episode. Holy shit.
Yeah, he's a little bit distressed. They probably didn't pitch this one to him as he was on his deathbed. He died a couple of years before this one, so there's no.
I heard this is what killed him.
Yeah, they had the treatment for this one well in the can about 6 years earlier, and he was told, and he was very, very upset. But it is you were surprised to learn that they're actually referencing the Batman movie, The Dance with the Devil in the Pale Moonlight. Which
at first I thought like, oh, maybe that's just a general idiom, I guess is that the word?
Yeah.
I don't know, phrase. Yeah. But no, apparently it is just a reference to the Batman movie.
Yeah, I think the Batman movie actually made it up.
It sounds made up. It sounds like it's a thing, but also it sounds made up. So it wouldn't surprise me if it's not something that actually exists outside of that.
Yeah. Well, it's been a long time coming. We're finally in the Pale Moonlight, and I'll go further into that point after we take a break. I'm going to play an audio clip, and me and Clay are going to come back, and we're going to break down In the Pale Moonlight.
That was my first moment of real doubt. When I started to wonder if this whole thing was a mistake. So then I went back to my office. And there was a new casualty list waiting for me. People are dying out there every day. Entire worlds are struggling for their freedom. And here I am, still worrying about the finer points of morality. No, I had to keep my eye on the ball, winning the war, stopping the bloodshed. Those were the priorities. So I pushed on, and every time another doubt appeared before me, I just found another way to shove it aside.
So these can kind of be tough episodes, I think, Clay, because since we started DS9 2 years ago, actually, this Saturday, we're recording this on a Thursday, and on Saturday, August 17th, Clay, is the 2-year anniversary of starting DS9 for these things.
Can you believe, not even that. We've been doing this for like 5 years.
Yeah, of Star Trek, I guess, since the start, but yeah, certainly podcasting for about 5 years. So it's pretty remarkable. It's almost like we're fighting our own Dominion War. But you've been hearing about Pale Moonlight ever since we were doing first season episodes, because people would tweet at you or they would say in the comments, I know you don't like episodes like Move Along Home or Babel or Visionary, or not Visionary, but whatever the hell else was going on in the first season when the show was trying to find its feet. People would say, just wait until the Pale Moonlight comes along. And so here you are, after 2 years of this, and 2 years of people saying, just wait for the Pale Moonlight to come along. Without talking about the quality of the episode, what's it like to know of an episode that's coming up and then to get to it?
Honestly, I wasn't really paying that much attention, if I'm being completely honest.
Sure. You recognize the title.
Yeah. Only because recently I feel like it's popped up a couple more times. Now that you say that, I remember people dropping it every now and then, but I didn't have it like marked on my calendar.
Right.
That I was like, ooh, this is the one everyone's talking about, you know?
Mm-hmm. So it didn't really cross your path. So you approached this as basically a brand new, just a somewhat generic episode. We knew going into it that this is considered to be one of the better ones, and I feel like I'm kind of even blowing it up now. But I was just wondering if the expectation of greatness can sometimes interfere with like how you receive things like this. It's when people talk up movies and stuff, and then you go see it, it always feels like a letdown because it doesn't match the fervor that the people were talking about it with.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what would you think about it in the Pale Moonlight?
I thought it was fine. No, I'm kidding. I thought it was great. I thought it was really good.
It's like duets. It's not the best.
Yeah.
It's not the worst. It's just somewhere comfortably in the middle of 178 episodes.
No, I thought it was really great. It's the structure of it, I think, was the most interesting to me because it's a structure that generally shouldn't work as well as it does here, because recounting stuff in flashback like this can seem kind of cheap. But I think what makes it really work is the fact that Sisko is doing it as a personal log entry, so he is being incredibly honest about it. And then at the end, he erases the entire thing. I think that's what makes the structure work so well.
Right.
Is because if they had just done this, if it was like Sisko getting debriefed by his superior or something, it wouldn't have felt that unique. But the fact that he's doing it as a personal log, kind of talking essentially directly into the camera for a lot of it, and then at the end he gives you that left hook of, I can live with this. Computer delete. I'm sure my thing. Delete
that whole personal log.
Yeah, computer delete the whole personal log. I just thought it was great. I mean, I think that makes the structure more of a gimmick. I mean, sorry, less of a. Yeah, it just responded. My Alexa answers to computers, so anytime I say it, it lights up. So if it seems like I'm whispering the word, I'm trying not to activate it. Yeah, I thought him deleting at the end makes the structure less of a gimmick and more of it actually having a point to why they used it. And whether or not that's the case, I don't know, because it is a good gimmick to tell the story. But yeah, I thought it was a really effective use of that sort of structuring, and I wasn't really surprised by the story.
Sure.
But I think what they did, I was surprised that they did what they did, if that makes sense. Like, everything that they did felt like the right move to do in a way that I wasn't expecting them to make the correct move. And that's no swipe at them, or maybe it is a swipe at them, but they were making the right move in that story in a way that I feel like they don't usually let them do in a show like this.
Yeah.
The big two being Garrick revealing that he blew everybody up, and that was his whole plan from the start.
Yeah, sort of. And, it was his backup plan. It wasn't his main plan. It was his backup. Yeah. Yeah,
it was his main plan, but it was also his backup plan. It was like, I don't want to have to do this, but this is what the plan is.
Yeah.
And the other one being the deleting of the log and the admission of being able to deal with the guilt of it. I feel like those are two things that you're not generally going to get from two main characters on a Star Trek show.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably peak DS9, I think.
Great use of Dax too. I thought the that Devil's Advocate scene with Sisko and Dax, I thought that was great.
Oh, really? Yeah, I have. That's a good point to kind of jump off into my. I'm not conflicted about this episode, but I think that there's like, for the praise that it gets, I think that I probably have a couple nits to pick. Like, I don't think it's sublimely perfect in a lot of ways, but I think that it's. What I do think it does is that I think its script is top notch. I think that I think the way that they build and escalate everything throughout the story as they're cutting back and forth to the flashback or the present day tense of Sisko talking to his log is really, really good. And everything here, like I think the biggest thing about the script is that it's one of those episodes that felt like it could have been one of those things where we complain that it's too big of an event for a Star Trek episode. And you kind of lose track of how big, or like you kind of lose things because of the scope is too much for the Star Trek episode to get across. And I think the script really gets around that by building so effectively, where every single decision that Sisko makes as he's trying to get this goal of getting the Romulans to join the war effort is a little bit of a sacrifice that keeps building and building until he gets to the final one. And
it's not like at the beginning of the episode he's like, what do you think I could do to get the Romulans involved? Like that's at the bottom of an avalanche of stuff that he's been dealing with, and you feel the weight of all that stuff.
Right, he doesn't open it with who do I have to murder around here to get some Romulans involved in this, because he starts with sort of innocent enough. Let's get the Romulans involved by sort of talking to them, and then we'll trick them, and then all these things, and then unfortunately we'll get to the end of it. But I think that's the greatest accomplishment. I think that it has a few weird issues. The Dax scene. I always feel that Terry Farrell misplays it slightly. She sounds a little bit too sensual in that scene where she's talking back to him. It's kind of like she's not a Romulan senator, or more like she's a sex phone operator or something, or phone sex operator. She plays it a little bit strange, and I kind of, just because of the ending, I kind of had the same thing about Avery Brooks's final performance here, the final scene with him, and we'll talk about that, but I think it's really strong. All of my criticisms comes from knowing this episode sort of backwards and forwards and being very familiar with it, and how well it's regarded and everything like that. But I think it just, to get it out of the way, the script is just the main attraction here. I think it's written by Michael Taylor. It was a story that is nothing what Peter Allen Fields pitched, but he gets the story credit. And it's really
also
strong.
said, because I actually did a little bit of looking up on this one for once, apparently Ron Moore completely reworked the entire thing.
Yeah, he did the final draft, uncredited.
Yeah.
It was originally supposed to be a Jake Sisko Watergate's Shikar story.
Yeah, which, fuck that guy.
and then it was going to turn into Jake uncovers what Garrick and Sisko have done in this episode. That was the sort of second draft that they moved into.
That's kind of interesting. That changes your structure a little bit. That makes it a little bit more like Citizen Kane or something, where you've got someone, getting stories from other people who are then telling it, and you get this unreliable narrator thing probably worked into it. I think that's a different episode.
It is. They ultimately decided that they, for what we've been talking about, the Sisko and Jake relationship is too strong, and no one believes that this would happen between the two of them as they were working on it. So they ended up with what they ended up with. But I think it's a good distillation, taking a good idea and just distilling it down to the essence of what you're going after.
Yeah. Because the Shikar thing, no one cares. No one gives a shit about that guy.
Right.
We haven't seen him in forever.
I thought he was dead, honestly.
Yeah, he's a peripheral character at best.
Yeah.
And it's only going to make Kira annoyed. And the thing with Jake, it's like you're getting closer, but still you're not. What are you driving at with this story? It's not. You're not looking to get all of this twisty route to reveal what actually happened. You want to get to the core of the consequences of the actions.
Yeah. Well, the Jake thing.
In order to do that,
sorry, go ahead.
You have to. I was just going to say, in order to do that, you just have to deal with Sisko, what he did and how he feels about it.
Yeah, the Jake thing just adds a layer that overly complicates what's going on. Yes. Because then if you do that Jake story, you go, well, why are Sisko and Garrick doing that? And how is Jake going to react to learning this about his father? Yeah, it's exactly. Too much for a 40-minute Star Trek episode. So,
and do you think that he would actually come clean about it?
Ben Sisko?
Yeah. At that point,
that Jake Sisko version of the script, yes, I think that they would hash it out and have a kind of Jake learns what it's like to be man as he learns that his father has done some nefarious shit to win the war, basically. Yeah. But I prefer this. I prefer Sisko keeping it a secret, and only he's the only one that knows about him and Garrick know what actually happened. I think that why I think it works is it's pretty much the peak DS9 pinnacle of what DS9 is trying to go for. And it's funny that this comes right after Inquisition because they're kind of the same idea as each other.
Yeah, I have some other thoughts about Star Trek Discovery again,
okay.
that we can save for later.
We'll focus on this and come into Discovery, I guess, in a little bit.
Yeah, which piles on to my idea that the thing that I postulated last episode. I think it continues through this episode.
Well, do you want to say that, and then that we can bounce that into how DS9 handles it? Maybe that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah. Like, I can't help watching this and not thinking like, well, this is not entirely dissimilar. I mean, it's not the same thing, but it's like I can imagine the writers of Discovery watching this episode and going like, yeah, what if we had our main character jumpstart a war? Mm-hmm. You know, it's the same kind of, it feels like it's dabbling in the same arena, but they didn't bother to really get into what any of that actually means. In the same way, or in the last episode, it's basically the Ash Tyler storyline, except the Ash Tyler storyline is a literalization of what they did in Inquisition.
Right.
Yeah, and it just makes me feel like there was a chunk of episodes that they watched and referenced, but they didn't take the right things out of it. They took the exciting elements out of it, but they didn't take what those elements mean or why they worked in the DS9 universe, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the reason I think that this episode works is that it's been 5.5 seasons of Sisko to this point. Yeah. And we've had 3 or 4 seasons of Dominion activity, and we've sort of learned everything that's been going on in that realm. And the thing about this one is that it really just highlights the difference between Sisko and the other captains, I think, where Sisko is truly the opposite of Kirk, I think. Where Kirk is the kind of larger than life, like mythical figure that is always going to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. Sisko is the most realistic of the Star Trek captains, I think. And you could say that DS9 is probably the most realistic of the Star Trek series just because of how the things that it's talking about, like how it decides that it wants to handle these things. But I think that Sisko handling this is a purely Sisko way of going about things, and I think that what Avery Brooks does the best is he does sell Sisko's conflict about it more than he sells certain other points that I think we can get into later. But the Sisko approach to this is a very pragmatic, honest way that I think like Kirk would never have stood for any of this. Like he would have moralized about like what's gone wrong and everything like that. But Sisko's approach to it is much more of this is a pile of shit that keeps getting bigger and bigger. And then at the end, I'm going to have to reconcile and deal with it.
Yeah, I don't know how Picard would deal with this. I don't know what his reaction would be to this, honestly.
I think Picard would accomplish the same goal that Sisko did, but at the end he would talk to other people about how it was a great failure that this is what they've come to. I think that's. Do you think he would go about it the same way? No, he wouldn't go about it the same way. I could see the same event coming out of it, but it would be that Garrick would have tricked Picard into something. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. Also, it's funny that at no point in Star Trek Insurrection does Deanna Troi mention the invasion of Beta by the Dominion. It's another seems like kind of a big deal. It's another great point though. Like they gave us a planet that we actually know that was conquered in this episode, and it gives you a stake.
Great pick.
And it just adds to the script. I think the script, like, they keep hitting that point of the casualty reports. They keep coming back to that. Every time Sisko thinks that like he has a setback, he gets another casualty report. It like steals him to continue going on with what he's doing. And the fall of Beta Z is the final thing that convinces him he has to do this because the Dominion are knocking on the door of the core planets at that point. And it's good to get a reference to a planet that we know and not like Mixolania 4 or something like that you have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, or the planet of the fish head people or something. Right, exactly. Big Fleetwood. Yeah. I don't know. I think that the troubling thing about talking about this episode is that it's kind of making a similar point to a lot of recent episodes that we've had. Like there's there's nothing original in terms of the theme that they're talking about. It's really just how far they're going to push Sisko and the sort of the build and the relentlessness. And what I think is its greatest accomplishment is maybe just they don't reverse it to a Star Trek morality thing at the end. Yeah. There is no Sisko saves the day by doing the right thing. You get a rare moment of true honesty from Garak, who explains, like, listen, idiot, like, these are the things that we have to do to accomplish the goals that we need. And then Sisko having to deal with the fallout. But it's brave of the show, and I think it shows its black sheep, poorly rated self at this point, where they're willing to do an episode like this.
Yeah, I was my initial thought was that the story was going to end up being that whatever Garak was doing for Sisko ended up flaming out, but it ended up being the means to an end of something that Garak was trying to get done. Like he specifically was trying, that guy who was in jail who ended up doing the holographic thing was someone who wronged him or something. So it was his way of using Sisko to get this guy out of jail so he could kill him or something like that. You know, I didn't think they were really going to go that way because of the way Sisko was talking about everything. I was like, it's got to be something more intense than that, because that's not really
for him.
Yeah, and that's not really that big of a failure. I mean, it is a failure, obviously, especially after you've gotten a guy out of jail, gotten him killed, gotten Quark stabbed, and then paid off Quark a bunch of money and, you know, X, Y, and Z, and you're just really digging your hole deeper and deeper. But I was glad they didn't go that way, because it makes Garak. I mean, he is this kind of character, but they really leaned into the elements of Garak that I love. And I know I've talked about this a million times before. I love the character on the good guy team who you're never sure you can trust, who always ends up more or less on the side of the good guys, but there's always a little bit of doubt that he's going to do the right thing. And if he does the right thing, it's not necessarily in a way that lines up with the values of everybody else. It's I always reference Transformers Beast Wars, because that was the first time I ever came across it. Was one of the Decepticon dinosaur robots ends up defecting and going to the Autobots side, and you have the Autobots who are these, you know, prime examples of good guys, and then you've got this one bad guy who's like, yeah, I'm on your team, but I'm probably going to stab some people while you're not looking.
Yeah, I just like the other guys a little bit more than I dislike you.
Yeah. I always liked that character. There's a character like that in The Walking Dead that they killed off and didn't use in that way, and it made me really upset, and that's why I stopped watching the show. Well, that's not true. It just wasn't a very good show. But yeah, I thought Garak was great. I had mentioned, I think I've mentioned it on the show. I know we talked about it off air, that it's been very Garak light in this season. Yeah, you've been mentioned missing. I think we have not seen him since the Occupation arc when he was on the Defiance with those guys. Yeah, but Garak is back in a big way in this episode. And I don't entirely remember his role in the Occupation arc. He was on the ship with them, right? Yeah, he crashed on Rocks and Shoals. He was on the planet with them. He was basically on the Defiant with them as they were flying around in that story. I prefer him more in this role, where he's not going out on missions with people, but he's doing the shit behind the scenes and whatnot. And, you know, you have to show up to his tailoring shop to punch him in the face. Yeah. I really like his use here. Is this episode the one that people were pointing to as something that would make me like the Garak telling the truth or not telling the truth? Yeah, the Wire story. I mean, this is kind of a pinnacle Garak. If you think about it, a lot of the best Garak episodes are him being paired with one of the main cast members. There was the two-parter where the Romulan and Cardassian fleet got destroyed, was pairing him and Odo together. And then when they're in the prison planet one where they get captured by the Dominion, it's a Worf and Garak story together. Right. And well, I mean, they're all very strong. Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense because, you know, the strength of this series is not, hey, look at this ethos that Gene Roddenberry created. Isn't it amazing? It's taking that ethos and just bending it to the point of breaking. Yep. And he's the perfect character to do that because, and I mean, this episode is another great example because, you know, like I think we said last episode, Ben Sisko, even though he seems like he's a renegade, is the proving ground generally for the Starfleet ethos.
Yeah.
You know, he's at the end of the day, he is a Starfleet character, and he is going to follow those rules and follow those morals.
Yeah, they've kind of stopped doing it, but he's constantly referencing the uniform. A lot of his concerns are about the uniform. There's the thing where he screams at Eddington, "You betrayed your uniform." He had the one with the guy who joined the Maquis who said, "I didn't recognize you without your uniform." He's very much still a Starfleet captain, even as he is Ben Sisko.
And this is a great episode as far as pushing him and bending his beliefs, because even in this one, Garak gets him to do something very well. I mean, technically, all of Starfleet agrees to do it. That was the one thing I kind of thought was weird. Was I was like, it feels strange that Starfleet signed off on this. Like it feels like it would make more sense if it was completely secret.
Sure. Starfleet's only signing off on lying to them about the data rod, right? Yeah.
But even that, like, I feel like that is underhanded enough that I think traditionally Starfleet would not sign off on that.
Sure.
That seems a little bit out of character for them. But that being said, you know, Garak comes up with this idea that's very underhanded. He gets Sisko to co-sign on it, which he then gets Starfleet to co-sign on it. But even at that point, Garak knows that isn't enough, and that Starfleet or Sisko doesn't have what it takes to do what needs to be done.
Yeah. I also like that to tie into that, the Romulan ambassador also has lines about when he's talking to it. He's like, Starfleet doesn't he basically says Starfleet doesn't have the balls to do what needs to be done to Sisko. Yeah. And it's all of these characters who are operating on the understanding of what Starfleet will do and is not willing to do, and then flipping it to the surprise of which is why the lie works for everybody, because they can't believe that Starfleet would actually do this. And that's what makes it so effective in what Sisko does.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a really effective corner that they paint Sisko into, where Garak does lay it out for him, and he's like, if I told you he says, if I told you what I was going to do, you wouldn't go for it. You don't have what it takes to do this. And Sisko essentially, in so many words, says, yeah, you're right. I know this is the right thing. This is the thing that needed to be done. I did not have the balls to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it's a really, and I don't mean that as like a knock on him or anything, but it's just, that's part of his rationalization, or maybe that's not the word, but his summary at the end is more or less him being like, yeah, I couldn't have done this. Garak did it, and honestly, I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Do you think it's fitting that Garak did the dirty work here, or is it a cop out in a Star Trek way where they can't have the main character do that? I personally think that it's more effective this way. And it feels like it would be.
I think so.
I think it would be traditionally seen as like kind of a cop out to have. You'd be like, oh, of course they have the character who's shady. He's going to do all the actual shady business here. But I think they do an interesting thing of hinting. Garak has a line of, you knew what I was when you came to me in the first place. Like, so how are you going to sit here and claim to be surprised by me doing what I knew that needed to be done? There's a reason you came to me in the first place.
Yeah, that stuff and the Section 31 stuff in the last episode reminded me of there was a revamp of the comic book X-Force a handful of years ago, where they turned X-Force into basically the Wetworks division of the X-Men. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading some issue of it, and it's a team made up of Wolverine, Archangel, Psylocke, basically the hard-edged, ass-kicking guys.
Sure.
And there's this other character who just watched all of them just slaughter a bunch of bad guys. And this other X-Men character is like, how could you do that? How could you just go in there and kill all those people? And Wolverine's like, look at this team. What did you think we were going to be doing?
Sure. Yeah.
You guys put this team together. You sent us out there. You didn't send us out there to bring people back.
We're not the talkers.
You don't put Wolverine and Archangel on a team so they can go arrest people.
We're the doers, not the talkers, I guess, would be the way about it.
And I think that's a great little bit of character work too, is it's like, yeah, he could have gone to a lot of different people, maybe not in the cast that we know, but he could have gone to a lot of different people, but he went to Garrick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a sign of the desperation of the times, I think, and everything for Starfleet.
Another element that's really interesting, that's not really a story element, but I just find it fascinating. There's been a couple episodes that we've looked at, 20 years on, and seen how it was, as sci-fi tends to be, either on purpose or by accident, oddly prophetic. What they essentially do here is they create a deep fake, which is something, which is a new technology that's popped up in the past few years. Yeah. That the number one thing people say about it is, oh, they might be able to fabricate video and audio of world leaders and start a war. Yeah. That's exactly what they do. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's basically fake news is what Sisko's passing along to, why can't I remember the Verdict or something like that? I'll look it up, but they're basically passing along fabricated video that is imperceptible, except it is perceptible for some reason because the guy goes, it's a fake. Yeah, I thought for a second that was like a dream or something, because that was pretty over the top. There's it's a fake. There's a YouTube cut of that guy saying it's a fake, just cut up against Benny Russell going, it's real. And it's basically like a 20-minute YouTube video of just him going, it's real, it's a fake, it's real. I'm surprised that guy went that big with it, because I thought he was great. Otherwise, that actor is, I can never remember his name, but I know him as not Lance Henriksen. Okay. He's in a lot of like movies that I feel like people wanted Lance Henriksen for, but they couldn't get him, so they got this guy. They had half the salary for him. Yeah. That's a good call. He's Canadian. I know the actor, but yeah, he's Canadian. His name is Vreenak in this as the Romulan. Also, we can touch on that. We haven't seen the Romulans in a long time. It felt good to see the Romulans for some reason. Yeah. I was thinking about that too. I think it goes a long way to to reinforce the breadth of the Dominion and what they're actually doing, because so much of this is off screen, and we don't have any point of reference other than people talking about it. Even the casualty list thing, it's like, okay, yeah, we don't know who any of these people are. We're just watching people be sad. Yeah, it's tough to really get a handle on that stuff. So when you've got another race that we are very familiar with coming in to deal with it, it's like, oh, okay, this is definitely something that has wide-reaching consequences. Yeah, it's unprecedented, right? There's never been a moment. These are the Klingons, humans, and Romulans are three sides, or they're three angles of a triangle that can never get together, right? That's like been the whole thing throughout the entire series since TOS and TNG, and it's kind of unprecedented. And as you say, it shows the threat of the Dominion in a way that the show sometimes has trouble doing it, just by saying that these three groups are now working together to try to stop something. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's good to see the Romulans. Like the show the series never really knew what to do with the Romulans. They were kind of just a better idea that they never really knew how to flesh out. And there were some really terrible Romulan episodes in TNG. And hey, they went a long way to fleshing out the poor, awful, terrible fate of Tasha Yar. That's true. They did exist, and they fulfilled their purpose there. They're I'd say they're like, it's nice to see them in DS9, but we haven't really seen them except for maybe a handful of episodes in this series. But they are. I was just kind of thinking how we used to say that Guinan was a reboot, like a version 2.0 of Troy. Eventually, like the writers were like, let's just kind of really redo this character. I feel the Cardassians are kind of a reboot of the Romulans in a lot of ways. I can see that. They're sort of similar, but they're just more extreme in what they're willing to do. And it's kind of a shame that they never really flesh out the Romulans, because they work well here. I think they're a kind of species that is different enough from everybody else that they feel like they bring a unique voice to the table, even if they're somewhat poorly defined. Yeah, the Romulans always feel like actually, it's literally what they're used for here. They always felt to me like they were a species that got used or referenced because it was something that people knew, but that was about it. There was not really a lot to it. Like in Nemesis, It's like, oh, blah, 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 blah. The Romulans. It's like, oh, yeah, the Romulans. We've never seen them deal with the Romulans. Okay. Why do we care about the Romulans? We don't really know anything about them.
They have a Senate,
but we know that they're a thing, and that's literally what they're used for in this episode. But it actually works really well here.
Yeah, they're bodies basically, which is why it works in this one. They have ships. We know that they fight, and that
even in fearsome. Fucking Nemesis, they're only there to get blown up,
right? Yeah,
and then the whole rest of the thing takes place on Remus or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think that like. The scenes with the Romulan senator actually stick out to me because I think it's nicely written where he is shown to be a person who pays attention to the details because he's talking about how he can tell that the drink is fake that he's drinking. Yeah. It's just nice touches like that. Like it doesn't do these unfortunately too common thing of Star Trek where the senator would sit down and go, I'm an expert detail analyst. Like that's my job or something. And so anything you try to pull on me is going to be not worth doing. And they do it more subtly here.
I know which parts of my wives are fake.
They do it more subtly here.
Just by looking at them.
By introducing, some synthetic Romulan ale, and he can tell the difference. And then he goes off. It's a nice like artistic touch to the script.
Yeah, it's a great. I don't know if you'd call that foreshadowing. I guess you kind of would. I mean, it's a great way to subtly do that stuff, and that's honestly not that common for a show like this.
Yeah, and I think they really pack a lot into the runtime here. Like a lot of events happen. Quark gets stabbed. They meet the Romulan senator. I love the moment where Sisko physically attacks the computer programming guy, which I think is a big turn for him.
98th rule of acquisition, which is the $1 Million Man rule, which is everybody's got a price.
That's right. we learn a lot about it. It's interesting, and I think that the bigger point about it is that it's a DS9 episode that takes the Spock, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and it turns it into something else where Spock saying that and sacrificing himself in Wrath of Khan is a very TOS version of what that saying actually means, where Spock doesn't harm anybody else. He sacrifices himself in order to save the day there, saving the many by losing himself. However, the saying to me is actually more about what Sisko does here, which is how are you going to hurt other people to save more people than the ones that you hurt? And I think that's actually the tougher ethical dilemma, I think, for any of the characters. Like Spock's death and the way that Spock approaches it is a very TOS thing. It's very much like, this is the hero. He's going to do the hero act right here. He's going to die and then be resurrected as a hero story. And Sisko's is more about, this is the right thing to do, but we've been raised in this environment that you've been telling us this is the wrong thing to do. You can't do it this way. And then how do you deal with the fallout of that? And you seem to imply, I think, at the end that you thought Sisko had talked himself into it. I don't think he has. And if I have one major criticism of this, I think that Avery Brooks doesn't play the final scene correctly. And I think it hurts it a little bit, but you can go off of any of that. We can get more into specifics into what I'm talking about with Avery.
Well, I don't think he necessarily talked himself into it. I just think he's just stating, I think he's just using the whole thing to get it off of his chest and just say it out loud so that he can kind of deal with the guilt and whatnot and kind of examine it on his own. Because I mean, like, honestly, that sort of scene at the end, or I honestly, like the whole thing, like I was saying at the beginning, generally they would do something that like this, that would be him talking to being debriefed or something. Or the way
would be coming in and listening to him.
The way that this would normally go would be the first 80% of it would be him talking to an admiral. And then after that, he'd be talking to Dax. And that's when the last scene would happen where he would say to Dax, blah, 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 blah. The thing is, I can live with it. Roll credits.
Right. You know, that's the thing that's most surprising to me is that I've learned I can live with what I've done. Yeah.
But I think that undercuts what they're doing here, which is him not having anybody else that he can talk to about this because it's so clandestine and underhanded that he has to get it down on paper, basically, if only so he can destroy it afterwards.
Yes. I see. I guess I'll specifically hone in on a minute here. At the very end, he repeats to himself in a couple different ways, I can live with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the script is trying to say there is he's basically trying out that phrase. He's trying to make it sound like he actually means it. And I think that Brooks's performance doesn't sell that enough. I think he comes across as a little bit too much of the opinion that he is okay with what he's actually done. And I think that Sisko is internally compromised and broken at that point. Like he does not actually believe that he can live with it, but he needs to tell himself that he can in order to continue. And I don't know if Brooks sells that.
I don't disagree with you because I do remember thinking his reading was a little weird. Like him repeating the line did feel different than the way he actually said it, if that makes sense. Like
he puts a different emphasis on the words each time he says it. So he's kind of like an actor running through his lines about how he's going to make it sound most effective saying this thing.
Yeah, like his reading of it is very much like him saying confidently that he can live with it. But repeating it, as even at the time, I was like, that feels like he's reading it wrong, or like that. I feel like you don't have him repeat that in the script on the page because he's confident about it. I feel like you repeat that because he's specifically not confident about it.
Yes.
So I guess he just made a choice as to which one he wanted to play.
He did. I think it's in contradiction to what the script says about it. Even the way he like defiantly crosses his legs at the end and kind of sits back. His body language is wrong there. He needs to be sort of leaning forward, head in hands, thinking about what he's done. And it's not that the body language he has is this very confident, like I'm on a date with somebody, like he throws his arm over the couch and crosses his legs.
First date with Ben Sisko. Let me tell you about how I got the Romulans into the war. Sit down. This is going to take a minute.
This is a great episode. I feel it kind of deflates it a little bit at the end there. It's just a little bit wrong. And I wish it's one of those episodes I wish I could just reshoot in a different way. And
yeah, I think it's tough though, because I think he is making a choice, but I don't think it's necessarily up to us to decide whether or not he made the wrong choice there. Because if Avery Brooks feels that Sisko is confident that he can live with it, then that's how he plays it, you know? And I understand what you're saying. It's a very subjective acting kind of thing.
But do you think Sisko as a character can live with that, what he's done? Like, I think the way that I interpret the Sisko character is that he can live with it. However, he would be upset to learn that he can live with it.
Yeah, I would believe that, yeah.
So to me, his ending personality there should just be kind of a shocked dismay at what he's realized about himself. And I think it's just sold wrong. It's sold too confidently. Yeah,
I can see that, yeah.
Because I don't know what it says about the Sisko character if he's just like, you know what? That actually wasn't all that bad. I can do this all day. I'll go out there again and I'll do this exactly the same thing. His line about I would do this all again exactly the same way is more about he realizes that he's done the right thing at great cost to himself.
Right. Yeah. I was just thinking, do you think Inquisition, that you remember how we were talking about the scene at the end of Inquisition where he's like, next time you must become a spy because how do these people operate inside of blah, blah, blah. Do you think that episode would play differently if it came after this one?
Yes.
Specifically that element, because at that point it's almost like, you know, he doth protest too much, you know, where it's like, how could they do this clandestine back channel stuff? This is not Starfleet. We don't do that kind of stuff. You know, Sisko, you really have some opinions on this thing we just found out about.
That's a good point. If they had flip-flopped the episode order, it completely destroys Inquisition, how people are going about things. Like how just the character reactions to Inquisition, I think, don't make a lot of sense at that point. And, we're going to go, this is Star Trek, so we're going to kind of reboot the Sisko character after this episode. It's not like he continues to be a broken man for the rest of the war or anything, but this is just I think this is just the pinnacle of what the war arc for the Dominion has shown. It's taken the captain character, who is the main, quote unquote main character in the Star Trek series, and broken him down in a way that they did with Kirk and they did with Picard. And this is the way that he is at this point.
When do we find out he's been replaced with Mirror Sisko, and that's why he has such of an edge now?
That'll come in Discovery Season 3, I think, when they go to the future and Avery Brooks is there for some reason.
You mentioned the thing about Spock and the needs of the many. I was thinking the exact same thing, and it actually reminded me a long time ago. Well, it wasn't that long. I was talking to you about a story that I wanted to pitch to IDW for a Star Trek comic, which was never going to happen, so I may as well just talk about it here. And my idea was basically to look into Spock's last mission before he leaves the Enterprise, it would take place between the end of the show and the beginning of the first movie. And the idea that I had was Spock is presented with essentially this kind of situation, but he leans on the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, but like on a much larger scale. So it's like he ends up destroying a planet in order to save a galaxy. Maybe not that big, but that kind of idea where it's like he's not just killing himself or just killing one person. He's killing a lot of people to save even more people. Kind of like what they play with in the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest
statistical probabilities.
episode.
Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
So, and so it allows Spock to really lean into the logistics of it, which is, on paper, obviously that makes sense. And, but how that ends up affecting him and driving him back to Vulcan and into the total wiping of his humanity that never quite clicks for some reason, which then makes his eventual sacrifice in Wrath of Khan a little bit more poignant, because he now approaches the same question, but from a more personal, humane avenue than and he sees now why one makes sense and one doesn't, essentially.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting ethical question about where the line is there, and there's obviously like no right answer to it. But I mean,
well, it's kind of like a weird. I mean, it's not a 1-to-1, but it's kind of like that thing that stupid joke. I think they said like Churchill would say or something, where he's like, would you sleep with me for $50? And he goes, no. Well, how about $100? Like, no. Okay. What about $1 million? Go, yes. And go, what about $500,000? And it's like, no. What do you think? I'm a whore? And he's like, well, we've established you're a whore. Now we're just haggling on the price. It's like, what is the ethical line that makes it okay?
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good analogy. It's the,
I don't know if it is, but
it's certainly it's certainly down the line, and you got to say whore. But I think that
that's always on my list of things I want to say on this show.
It's an interesting quagmire, just because what is wrong? Like I guess that just to think about like what's the wrong thing there when you do something like what Sisko does in this episode, which will, in the long run, has achieved your goal of doing. It's really just the fact that I guess it's this weird like micro and macro economics of morality, where on like when killing one person feels extremely personal, even if you save 1 million people over it, like the scale of like relativity doesn't go up and down with it like accordingly. So like the interesting thing about the quagmire is that like if this was a Spock episode and not Sisko, Spock would kill the Romulan ambassador. You know what I mean? Like it would be a totally different thing if you replace Sisko with that. But the humanity of killing this guy who's not even a likable guy, interestingly, like they don't do a thing like Sisko walks down to see the Romulans. He doesn't even see the Romulans leave, which is interesting. But like, he doesn't see like Romulan kids on the ship or anything like that. Like, there's no innocence at all. It's just this guy who is a pro-Dominion Romulan, and he feels bad about what has happened to him. It's just a very interesting like moral thing. And as a viewer, you agree with him, but it doesn't. When you kind of look at it closer and closer, it gets harder to really even justify why you feel bad. I guess it makes you sound like an unemotional stone or something. But it's like the logistics of it are very strange when you think about it.
Yeah, I would love to see Bashir find out about this and then just really have a conversation with Sisko about like, so this was okay, but that plan that I told you that we would have saved 1 billion lives if you had just done X, Y, and Z, that was not okay. You know, and it's, again, that's not a one-to-one, but it's kind of dealing in the same weird gray areas where it's the personalization or the closeness of killing one person can be much more affecting than a larger scale thing.
Saving 1 million. Yeah, that's kind of an interestingly consistent character thing, though, because I guess I would argue that Bashir is playing the Spock role there, where Sisko in both of those episodes is consistently about, we're doing this for freedom. Like, it's consistently to escape the yoke of the Dominion is the rationale for why they're doing both things in both episodes. And so I feel that that's probably more the driving force behind Sisko there, because he needs to stand as the antithesis to the Dominion. And Bashir is the interestingly up in the air character who's also the TNG moral character, but is also the one who's willing to say, listen, maybe we got to sacrifice 1 billion people to save 10 billion. Yeah.
Can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs, as the Joker would say.
A few intergalactic eggs. Yeah, do you have anything else you want to talk about Pale Moonlight, or should we go to final thoughts?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think it's tough. Like, it's, again, I think I approach this podcast in a weird sense of, it's not that this theme is a completely out of left field for this series. So it's not like you're stuck with like, where the hell did this come from? It feels more like it's the natural evolution of where the show was going, and it's kind of the pinnacle of where it wanted to go while it was driving that whole 5.5 seasons or whatever. So if there's not a lot to say about it, at least in this podcast, we talked for an hour as I say that, but it's really just because of that. I feel like it's more a evolution to something than it is a shocking revelation that you can't believe Sisko would do this.
Definitely. And I actually, speaking of Bashir, I actually did really like that one scene that he and Bashir have where he's asking him to get that gel stuff, and Bashir's like, why do you want this stuff? And he's like, I just want it. He's like, okay, I'm going to need that in writing, and I'm going to file a complaint in X, Y, and Z. You know, I thought that was good. I like that stuff.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised that there wasn't more of that, and I'm not saying I want it, but generally I was a little bit surprised that they didn't have this version of Sisko in this story bounce off some of his other more sounding board characters like Bashir or Kira or something. Or, I mean, you get Dax a little bit, but that's before he really makes the decision. And apparently Dax is all for it.
Yeah, he's got to keep him in the dark, I think, which is important.
Obviously,
in this.
Yeah. Like, but I'm not saying literally go up to them and be like, hey, I'm thinking about killing this guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's in whatever state of mind he's in, having a conversation that's a veiled conversation about blah 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 blah. You know?
Yeah, I think the script does an effective job of him being that character. You know, the flashback sequence is allowing him to bounce his ideas off of his past self or his future self or anything. So he kind of serves as his own counterpoint to a lot of what he's going through. It would be fun.
It would be really funny though to have a scene with like Kira and Odo and Sisko, where Sisko's like, you know, I'm thinking about, and before he can even get it out, both of them in unison go, kill him.
He's a Romulan. It's a fake. I guess we're done. Yeah, we'll take a break. We'll play an audio clip. Me and Clay will come back, and we're going to give our final thoughts about In the Pale Moonlight, and we'll also read some patron thoughts.
At 0800 hours, station time, the Romulan Empire formally declared war against the Dominion. They have already struck 15 bases along the Cardassian border. So, this is a huge victory for the good guys. This may even be the turning point of the entire war. There is even a welcome to the fight party tonight in the wardroom. So, I lied. I cheated. I bribed men to cover the crimes of other men. I am an accessory to murder. But the most damning thing of all, I think I can live with it. And if I had to do it all over again, I would. Garrick was right about one thing. A guilty conscience is a small price to pay for the safety of the Alpha Quadrant. So I will learn to live with it. Because I can live with it. I can live with it. Computer, erase that entire personal log.
Hey, everybody. So if you enjoyed the content today, you can support the show at patreon.com/thepenskyfile. Give a couple dollars a month and you get extra stuff like podcasts and things like that. You go to patreon.com/thepenskyfile. And also our Captain tier supporters get a shout out at this point. So thanks go to Andrew Cherlog, Ben Douglas, Bradley Killens, Captain Quark, Cardinal Doomsday, Christian Pouch, David K, Dwayne Hackett, Eric Johnson, Yarpy, Joint Mango, Kevin Reyes, Kyle Barrett, Matt Cutler, Matt Ross, Mike Burnett, Nathan Elliott, Neil Brennan, Nick Sergi, Robert Cummins, Russell Elledge, Samuel Custer, Grim Santo, Sean Spinobi, Tarek Latif, Vault 13 Hero, and Will Yates. Thank you very much, guys, for supporting the show. We've got some patron comments here to get through, Clay. If you support the show on Patreon, you can leave your comments about upcoming episodes. We read them on the podcast. We've got a lot of them here today, so I'm going to start right now with Poindexter G. My dad would watch Star Trek with me. He was a casual fan, not super serious like me. I remember when we watched this episode. When it was over, he looked at me and said, "That was really good television." I know that this may not be the best example of Star Trek's core values, but it's probably one of Trek's best hours of television. Dwayne Hackett says, I remember when I first saw this episode as a kid when it aired. The opening with Sisko directly talking to the screen threw me for a loop, as this was the first time in all the episodes of Star Trek that I've watched that I felt they broke the fourth wall in a very major way, and it worked for me. The story was engaging, the plot was fantastic, albeit predictable, and the characters responded in believable ways. I remember being very excited to see it on screen in every rewatch since, especially the line, "I can live with it." It sent shivers down my spine and continues to do so to this day. This is by far Sisko at his best.
Can I just say that I think what he said is not incorrect, but I think this episode is a really good example of why predictable is not necessarily a bad thing.
Yes. I actually disagree that it's predictable, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know if I would use the word predictable, but you know, it's like I said, they make all the right choices.
Right.
But I don't know if I would call it predictable so much.
Yeah. I mean, the shock of the end is that Sisko does not do the Star Trek thing, right? So like it's sort of unpredictable in that way. Like it doesn't end with the Star Trek-y wrap up in a bow and everyone's happy and the war continues, but we're all friends again kind of thing. So I think I would disagree that it's predictable, I guess. I did,
however, completely call that he was going to delete the thing at the end, right as he got to the end, and he was like, "Computer," and I just said under my breath, "Delete this record."
Well, what did you spend the episode going, how is he going to deal with this private personal log? Was that ever something that came into your head? Like, why is he recording his crime involvement?
It didn't occur to me going through it, but as they were wrapping it up, I was like, obviously he's going to delete this.
Gotcha.
What's he going to do? Just, leave it on the bookshelf? No, he's got to get rid of it.
I think it's one of the great Star Trek endings, actually. Yeah, I think City on the Edge of Forever is one that I always think about the ending and stuff like that. I think Inner Light has a really great ending, but just the cut to black and everything like that with delete that entire personal log, I think is really good.
Yeah.
Anthony Alvarado says, well, I think it's a great. I do wonder, can you watch this episode and only this one and still think it's great? Or do you really need to know about Garrick or the Romulans or the war? Is it a great episode because of how it fits into the overall arc? Either way, I think it's a classic ep. Sisko is great. Guest stars are great. Garrick is even better. Favorite quote, I'll be along shortly to say hello. Samuel S. says, fantastic episode. Star Trek has always argued that the ends don't justify the means. This episode throws that argument out the window as we see Sisko doing or condoning anything that gives him an additional ally in the war he knows he will lose if he can't get more help. 5 out of 5. That reminds me, Clay. Inquisition, right? I think I was kind of stumbling in making my point about what I thought about Inquisition, where I find Section 31 strangely sympathetic, right? And I don't know if a lot of people after watching that episode would have agreed with that. However, doesn't Sisko just prove the points of Section 31 here?
Kind of, yeah.
So it's interesting to me there that it's a kind of, maybe it's because you're supposed to be seeing it through the eyes of Bashir, who's a different character from Sisko. But I think that for all of the sense that Section 31 is an evil organization, at least in context of Inquisition, Sisko in the very next episode does what a Section 31 operative would do in this case.
Right.
It's just
technically he doesn't. Well, no, I guess he does. Yeah, he does half of it.
he's an accessory to Section 31. I guess he would say. Yeah. Which is I just think kind of an interesting twist, especially since they come so close to each other. Will Yates says, Avery Brooks gives a phenomenal soliloquy and one hell of a backhand. I loved Garrick's plan within a plan. He plays a great good guy with a dirty soul, or he's a bad guy with a glimmer of hope. The pacing was excellent, and I have trouble finding a single wasted line in the episode. I really liked that Sisko didn't say a thing before decking Garrick. It made perfect sense. Quark's interaction with Sisko was everything I could have hoped for. For me, this was a great ending that had a hard cut to black, and it makes me wonder how much else goes on that we never hear about. Andrew Sherlock says, in my opinion...
Deep Space Nine, Knights.
In my opinion, the greatest standalone Star Trek episode ever. Between the inner conflict of Sisko wrestling with his own ethics, Garrick revealing exactly how devious and heinous he is capable of being, the cluelessness of the rest of the crew, the moment at the end when Sisko convinces himself that I can live with it, this is a near-perfect episode from the first moment. In my mind, this is the official death of the TNG Starfleet until Voyager brings it back unsuccessfully, I might add.
Do you, jumping back a couple, he says it's a great standalone, which obviously it is. How do you feel about whether or not you could show this to someone who hasn't watched six seasons of it, and if it still holds up?
I think you can, and I think it does stand alone. I think it relies more on the context than a lot of the other great standalone episodes. Like I think you can show Duet as a totally standalone episode, and people would go, wow, that's a great episode. This one, I think you'd get a lot of questions of people going like, who the hell are these people? Like, what's going on? Like, why do they care about this? I think the episode explains it all and everything, but you don't, because we've been sitting with the Dominion for 3 seasons, I feel like it has extra oomph to it.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps that you've watched everything, but I honestly think it stands pretty well on its own. Yeah. Because I think everything is so clearly defined, the stakes are so clearly defined, and everyone's role and everything is so clearly defined that I think it's pretty easy to get the gist of what's going on. Yeah.
Cardinal Doomsday says, the second best episode of DS9 ever, and perhaps the one that defines the show. Picard would never do something this morally gray. Garrick is honest, Sisko chews the scenery, and the Romulans enter the war. That's a take. 4 out of 5.
Is the best one the one where the Ferengi go back in time? Or is it the one where they keep teleporting into the closet?
That one's a good one. We've got the greatest Ferengi episode of all time comes later this season, actually. So you might want to revise.
I feel like you said that about the last one.
This is the one that's coming up is like critically.
Every Ferengi episode is always the best Ferengi episode as far as Wes is concerned.
I want everyone who listens until we get to the Ferengi episode to tweet at Clay daily about the name of the episode, just so he's super aware of what we're getting to. Chad Wiley says, I view this episode the way a lot of comics fans view The Watchmen. So many great series like The Sopranos and Breaking Bad came along after covering similar ground that a modern viewer might wonder what all the fuss is about. but I watched it when it aired in 1998, and it was mind-blowing. It was completely revolutionary for Star Trek, and I've never forgotten its impact, the impact that it had on me. So maybe it's a nostalgia talking, but this is the number one single episode of DS9 in my book.
You know, the Watchmen comparison is actually kind of interesting because I do, I think that kind of plays into what I was saying about this and Discovery, where I feel like they watched this and they were like, oh, yeah, I love how dark it is and how morally conflicted it is and blah, blah, blah. We should do that with our show. But they didn't get what makes that stuff work, which is exactly what happened with Watchmen, is everyone's like, yeah, love the dark take on superheroes. Let's do that. Let's everybody do that now. And it was all like bad photocopies of it. Well, for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you'd argue it's it's a very Zack Snyder take on things, I think, there. Discovery is the Zack Snyder Star Trek series.
I would hate to say that, but yeah, kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that's actually a pretty good analogy, actually, yeah.
Chad Wiley's last thing here. Also, nostalgia aside, I don't see how anyone could not love Garak in his element here. Eric Johnson says, and to think this began as a Jake and Shakar story. It became Jake and Sisko, and then just Sisko. Uncredited writer Ronald D. Moore explained the Batman title reference was that despite all their flirting with breaking Roddenberry's rules on ethics, this is the first time that they have danced with the devil and taken him to bed. A 24th century Federation human does something terrible, and he can live with it.
I can't, man, it's so hilarious thinking that this started as a Jake and Shakar episode.
Termy says, this is my top 5 all-time favorite Star Trek. In my top 5 all-time favorite Star Trek episodes, I remember after it aired in 98, my brother looked at me and said, Star Trek captains can't do that. Picard would never do that. However, I worry the Kurtzman version of Picard...
This ain't your daddy Star Trek, boy.
This is not. However, I worry that the Kurtzman version of Picard is going to do some monumentally stupid, out-of-character shit, but that's a discussion for another day. Back to this episode. It's brilliant and takes Star Trek to a place that Roddenberry would not have been very happy with. Norman Buchwald says, this episode is almost flawless minus one thing. Can't Avery Brooks just tone himself down a little bit? People are dying. I actually like that scene where he says people are dying.
I thought he was fairly restrained for the most part.
That's my favorite scene that he does. It's in the middle somewhere. It's like 10 minutes in.
What if after the guy goes, it's a fake, he had gone, what do you mean it's a fake?
It's just them screaming at each other.
I know.
I remember back in the day, I got spoiled reading Star Trek news sites that leaked about Beta Z. Although I was surprised, maybe with relief, that they weren't there wasn't a follow-up with Loxana and Odo episode. This is the episode that finally demonstrates clearly, even with good intentions, that Garak can never be trusted. Still, Garak's odd absence, at least from the ending, of Inquisition was disappointing. In fact, does Bashir ever share Section 31 with Garak? Well, it probably wouldn't have been the other way around, Garak bringing it up to Bashir and knowing about it. And since I've missed my opportunity, let me say Inquisition is actually one of my favorite episodes and probably the only other one besides Ship in a Bottle where Deceptive Holodeck as reality episode worked. Only nit is it would have been nice if something about Bashir was more consistent rather than only just this episode mentioning scones. Sorry, Norman, you're going on for a little bit.
Yeah, you're giving him a lot of latitude on getting into the bar for the last episode.
I'm going to skip ahead. Back to the Pale Moonlight. I kept waiting for the biometric gel to have some serious repercussions. Learning about the absolute true price, even more than the other fans were expecting Romulans to find Sisko out. Even more than other fans were expecting Romulans to find Sisko out. I was disappointed that there was no show that featured a price paid. I would have picked something related to the biometric gel. It's true, the gel does not really... It's just for Bashir to get all very upset about Sisko's actions.
I wish they had cut to a guy receiving that 85 gallons of biometric gel and then just like using it to style his hair.
It's because what do they imply the episode? You can use it to clone people, I think is what they were saying.
You can do a lot of shit with it. You can make
bioweapons,
bombs and shit. Yeah, seems very useful.
Yes. And also for how dangerous it is, Bashir has a lot of the stuff. He's just got a huge closet full of biometric gel.
Yeah.
In the Pale Moonlight from Jay Ayers, Garak has a significant role in whenever Garak has a significant role in an episode, you know shit is about to go down. Sisko's personal mission to bring the Romulans into the war highlights his relaxed attitude to Starfleet protocols, by the fact he brings in Garrick, someone who was a spy, an assassin, a saboteur, and not long ago was willing to commit genocide against the changelings and plunge the Federation into war. So the fact that several people end up dead and Sisko seems surprised is hilarious. A truly great episode, 5 out of 5.
You know, just to jump back for a second, I think, you know, I think Garrick proved that you can trust him because he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He didn't take the MapQuest route that you had printed out for him, but he got you there.
Yeah, he got to the McDonald's at the very. This is the scene where Sisko backhands him and Garrick yells at him. Garrick is totally truthful for one of the few times in the series. Like, he is actually talking about how he felt, what he thought needed to be done, and there's no sort of bullshit mixed in with it.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Barrett says, I'm afraid this episode for me is a victim of hearing so much acclaim towards it before I watched it for the first time that when I did get around to it, I couldn't help but be a little bit disappointed. But I still think it's pretty fantastic and a bold move for the franchise. Maybe the most DS9 ever gets into quintessential Sisko episode, with it playing into all of Brooks' strengths. A 5 out of 5 for sure, and one of the best of the series, but it's not one of my very favorites. Matthew Ross says, sublimely devious and one of the best DS9 episodes of the entire series. Arguably, Section 31 should have been doing this. Sisko's complicity in the intrigue is his ultimate reverse from his character's beginning. Now the ultimate patriot ready to lie, cheat, and kill to ensure the Alpha Quadrant survival. But the real star, in my opinion, is Garrick. Although Garrick is only in a few scenes, there is no doubt that he's the ultimate puppet master, just as patriotic, only more able to act with sinister intent. In this episode, the loss of the Federation and allies feels real. The Romulans' observation that the allies' losses and the Dominion's advances are very chilling, and you realize that the good guys are close to losing. Visually, the Romulan ship landing in front of the runabout I thought was well conceived, and in the end, the moral right way has a bit of wrong. What price does one pay to save one's way of life? One senator, one forger, and some self-respect of a Starfleet captain who's willing to sacrifice his personal beliefs for a greater good.
You know, that's kind of funny. It does kind of bring up an interesting nitpick that is definitely a why didn't they ... kind of nitpick that you could go to if you were really missing the point of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because
where's the time warp, Clay? Where's the goddamn time warp?
Yeah. Because technically how this should have gone is Sisko goes to Starfleet and tells him the plan, and then Starfleet goes, we will put Section 31 on that right away. Yep. You know, like, that's the entire point. Like you said, that's the entire point of Section 31 is to do shit like this. So why are they just letting Sisko fuck around with Garrick? Right.
Yeah. They should. Like, we have a group for this. You met them, actually. You know what my big, I don't think it's a plot hole, but like the thing that I always wonder about actually is, so Sisko tries to trick the Romulan senator, right? He leaves in a huff and he flies off to his meeting at that other planet. 2 days later, he blows up. For some reason, the senator never reports back to Romulus that the Federation tried to trick him with a fake.
Right.
Which is strange, but whatever.
They also said that he was coming from where his meeting was supposed to be when he blew up.
Right, so he went to the meeting. He made it to the meeting.
He goes to the meeting, and then he leaves, and then he blows up. So, yeah, I mean, if you would have to assume that at the very least he told Wei-Yun that this shit happened.
Right.
But I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe, I mean, I think you could probably hand wave that away being like, well, they're not on the side of the Dominion, so he's keeping that shit close to his chest, and he didn't want to relay it back in case someone intercepted the blah. But, you know, I don't know. You could make something up. You could. It's clearly not important because actually in my mind's memory, I remember the episode Sisko does that, and as the Romulan shuttle is leaving the station, it blows up just like a few minutes later. Yeah, that's what it seems like is what happens until they actually talk about exactly what happened. Like the action feels like that's what it is until they say otherwise. Neil Brennan, final comments. How good is this episode? I don't even begrudge it. The over-the-top, it's a fake. No one does. No one begrudges anything like that. Thank you, patrons, for leaving your comments about In the Pale Moonlight. There was a lot of them, so we had to get through them quickly. I apologize for my poor reading skills, as it's 10:30 at night and we are tired. But thank you for leaving your patron comments. Thank you for watching In the Pale Moonlight with us. So, Clay, what are you going to give this one on our scale of 1 to 5? Hard 2.
Hard 2. It's a pretty clear cut 2, wouldn't you say?
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, why 2 days later the guy hasn't Dr. Romulus yet?
Yeah, I mean, come on.
You kidding me?
Was
this amateur hour?
Did nobody edit this script or what?
Did anyone read
Jesus
this
Christ.
before we shoot it?
No, it's a 5, obviously.
Top 10 DS9 for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Top 5?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think the ones that really stand out to me are clear standouts that really take the concept and really wring everything out of it that they can. And I think this is definitely one of those.
I kind of agree with Kyle's comments about it. I think it's a very good episode, but it's not one of my favorite DS9 episodes for whatever reason. I would still put Duet and The Visitor ahead of this one.
Yeah, see, I was only okay with The Visitor, so I would put this ahead of that.
Would you put Duet ahead of this one?
My first instinct is yes, but it's been so long since I've only watched it once, so I'd have to go back and watch it again.
Yeah. I think my order would go something at this point, just for people who care about this thing. It would be something like Visitor, Duet, and then maybe Rocks and Shoal. This is probably better than Rocks and Shoals, so it'd probably be in the 3 spot, unless I think about it a little bit more and come up with something else. But that's it. I think it's a great episode. I think it's a 5 out of 5. It is the show's thesis statement, I think, which is why it's remembered as the most popular DS9 episode. This is, if you were to pick an episode from each series, I think you'd do something like Corbinite Maneuver for TOS or something like that, and TNG's would be Darmok or something. This is kind of what defines DS9, I think, and that's why it's an episode that people tend to stick with. Let's see. Anything else? Do you have anything you want to say, Clay?
Nope. Kickstarter's still going. This is going out tomorrow, right?
This goes out Monday.
Oh, Monday. Okay, never mind.
We got a couple days.
Yeah, Kickstarter's still going. We just passed 18,000, which is pretty amazing.
Maybe that'll be old news by the time this pops up.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. And this is also old news, but I'm going to be putting up a Bat-Ass related reward tier, I think, Friday. So too bad if it's already gone by the time you hear this. I don't think it'll be gone, but keep your eyes open for it. Yeah, and thanks again to everyone who threw in. Yeah,
thank you very much for supporting the Kickstarter. You guys can support the show.
If you haven't and you'd like to check it out, you can find it at bloodyhell.com, BLOODYHEL.com.
Yep, you can support Clay's comic Kickstarter, graphic novel Kickstarter. That's an interesting. Is comic ever a insulting term?
No. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
I think the term graphic novel was only invented because the New York Times wanted a word to be able to put on their bestseller list, essentially. So. Although, as far as I'm concerned, the difference is a comic book is something that comes out monthly, and a graphic novel is something that is one complete book.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think of graphic novel, the complete story is in a graphic novel. Kind of implied by the term novel, I suppose. There is comic short for something.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Just comic book. All right. We're learning things, people. At the end of the episode, you can follow the show on all the social media down below: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I have an Instagram now. I found a way to automate Instagram, so it sends out pictures of Star Trek all the time. It's fantastic. You guys can go there and check that out. Patreon.com/the Pensky File. If you want to go there and support the show, a couple $2 a month, it's very, very helpful. And that's it, Clay. We're done within the Pale Moonlight. It's all downhill from here. There is no greater episode.
The way that they've really stepped the game up, I can only imagine that it's going to follow into the next episode. I mean, there must be something really heavy happening in the next episode, right? Like something really morally gray and just like really ethically juicy, and definitely not something involving a hologram projection of a lounge singer.
Well, you've obviously looked ahead, but there is Vegas. Vegas is involved, so
great. More Vegas, nothing more morally gray than Las Vegas.
That's exactly what you were going for. After killing a couple people, what stays in Vegas stays in Vegas, I think, Clay, is what Sisko learns. You'll be surprised. I think you'll be surprised by this upcoming episode, actually.
Okay.
You'll be surprised by the character that they create for it anyway.
Is it Joe Piscopo again?
It's not Joe Piscopo, unfortunately. It's Vic Vega, not Vic Vega, Vic Fontaine. Vic
Tarantino movies?
Reservoir Dogs.
Michael Madsen cutting people's ears off.
He cuts off quarks because it's easiest to do. We're done. Thank you guys very much. We've talked about this one for a long time. You will be back with, it's called His Way, right? Are you looking at it, Clay? I think the episode is called His Way.
I saw it earlier. I just saw a little.
It's called His Way. Yes, that's right. So we'll be back with His Way in a couple days. Guys, thank you very much for listening. Thank you for supporting the show, and we'll see you later.